Hi, and welcome to the OCD Gamechangers COVID Fireside Chats here at the OCD Gamechangers and the Intrusive Thoughts Facebook page. Shout out to Made of Millions and Intrusive Thoughts for including us and for collaborating with us. Yay! Today, well, first I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Chrissy. I am the founder and the executive director of OCD Gamechangers. I am the author of Pure OCD, The Invisible Side of Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, and I'm also a certified peer support specialist here in the state of Colorado, and I work worldwide to help support and connect individuals with OCD therapists all over the world. And today, our guest is Dr. Rob Lancer, and I'm going to have him introduce himself.
Hi, thank you for having me, Chrissy. So,
You're
Dr. Rob Lancer, I'm in New York, stuck in my home, and thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure.
And Dr. Rob Lancer thinks he does not have an accent.
No accent. This is just TV. This is just on TV.
As soon as I heard him, I was like, oh my gosh. You know, I'm from the South originally, Rob. So it's like the Southern and then like the Yankee accents, you know, like
it's a North-South thing.
It was always those Yankees. Oh, anyway. Oh, look, someone just commented, your hair makes me so happy. It is life. My hair is getting out of control, people. And look, there's Sean. Yay. And hi, Thomas. And hi, Caro. Am I saying that correctly? Caro? Anyway,
well, my Bluetooth's not working. I got my kids' headphones on, like their PlayStation headphones.
We're actually going to start playing Nintendo here in a moment.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Sean, I just want to let you know we are going to talk about you here in a little bit about the project y'all are doing. Yay! But first, just let me tell you what this is and why we are doing these. When the COVID crisis started, it was hard for me to, even though I wasn't having an OCD response to it, I had more of an emotional response. I didn't know how to process the change. I didn't know what was going on, and I felt really lost. And so my idea was that OCD Gamechangers would host these fireside chats so we could come and meet our community where we are at with people in the community that can talk about their own lived experience as this transpires, because all of us feel really confused and lost at times and really emotional. And sometimes it just helps to know that you're not alone. And so that's what we're doing here. So at some point, Rob, I'm going to dive into all the awesomeness that you're doing. But first, let's talk a little COVID. So tell us about, and first, you're a therapist in New York, correct?
Yes.
Even though you sound like the Jersey. Although, isn't it the same thing? It's the same, anyway, whatever.
No. Well, you said before Jersey Shore. That's a lower dig than Jersey.
I wasn't going to say that live. So Rob, you're a therapist. You specialize in treating people with anxiety, OCD, those things. We definitely want to tell us about that if you want to, but also, you know, tell us about what it's been like for you, whether that is just personally or professionally, once all this stuff started a few weeks ago.
Well, I think that, first of all, I was in my office about 4 weeks ago with someone who was concerned about terrorist attacks, like having intrusive thoughts about it. And I said, well, imagine if this COVID comes over from China, and it was kind of like never even thinkable. So the possibility was like nothing. Now, I think that now that's a reality. I mean, the isolation, I think, is the worst for everyone. I think that people being around people, having energy, being out and about, especially after coming out of a whole winter of being inside. Now the weather's beautiful. It's like our brains are ready for the sun, for the vitamin D, just to kind of pick up our mood and our spirits. And it's just kind of people are lost. And one of the biggest things is I always say that OCD is made up of fear, doubt, uncertainty, and anxiety, kind of all linked. So the uncertainty and the doubt of what's going to be next, I think, is the most sinister out of anything, and is driving force with the anxiety.
Oh no, I can see that. How is that client doing?
He's at home. Well, actually, some of the clients are better at home now because the fact that, ironically, they don't have to go outside. So I think
Yeah.
the depression for everyone's gone up, but the anxiety level has gone down a little bit. But it's really just kind of masking the overall. What I'm concerned about is for people when they have to go re-enter and have to really reacclimate back into the real world. Even
Yeah.
myself, it's like, where do we begin? How are people going to be? Like, what if this? What if that? All the what ifs are just like coming and going, coming at you at light speed.
Yeah. People keep talking about how, oh, when this is over, and oh my, like I remember seeing the memes going through here, and don't even get me started on social media, but I remember seeing the memes going through, and it's just like, oh, when this is over, all the restaurants are going to be packed, and this and this and this, we're going to support local business. I'm like, no, people aren't. People are going to like crawl out of their house like snails because they've just been fear mongered at this point. I'm not saying that it's not real. That's not what I'm saying. But I mean, it is certainly not going to be everybody's just going to bum rush the sushi restaurants. I mean, I will, but I don't care.
I just think that the possibility is now in their head of something that was never, I don't know, conceivable at all. I mean, I remember the tragedy of 9/11, and then
Yeah.
for us, we had Hurricane Sandy was inconceivable, and I lived right over by like Long Beach, which was by the water, and I remember passing it and seeing like these beautiful buildings, just sand filled in the lobby. So it's like these are inconceivable things. So now there's like possibilities, but I said it went from like, this is a psychological attack.
Yeah. That's true, because the other stuff you can really see, especially you being in New York. I mean, you've really just seen the damage and the destruction. You saw, what it's done to the community. And now this is more like, which is almost an OCD nightmare. But then again, a lot of OCD people are just like, oh, whatever. I'm just still, I'm just
Well,
still
I
worried that
think
I'm
we
this.
could. I mean, the fear part we could deal with because it's like a real thing, right? So we follow well with like the mask and the gloves. I don't know if that's necessarily the worst part of it. It's just that when like this touches that touches that, you go into a store, it's like, there's no peace or solace or kind of peace of mind ever.
Right.
So it's kind of amped up, and then you're going out and seeing people with like masks and gloves. It's like, what's going on?
I know. I know. Did you read the story about the people that were in the Grand Canyon for 3 weeks
No,
on a trip, and they came back and they like they pulled up and the people came up in like masks, and they were like,
I actually saw
your
something.
stuff.
Actually, there was a news story about astronauts came back from space.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Can you imagine? And you're like, I hope they didn't watch a zombie apocalypse movie up there.
exactly. Well, they were saying with they also had. Have you been in the stores? They have like X's for every 6 feet to
Yes.
stand.
Oh, yes. The rebel inside of me. The
I,
rebel.
I
I
want
hate
to
it.
know why there's no frozen pizza. Okay. Paper towels, toilet paper, and frozen pizza because I can't make anything for my kids. Okay, I need the frozen pizza back if anyone's got any.
So speaking of your kids, what has it been like for you, like as a family? I mean, going from like normal life to now everybody is here in the house.
I think that there's going to be a greater appreciation for being outside and with their friends. Even I think I never thought that they'd get sick of like PlayStation or playing online, but I think they really are gonna. Hopefully, people can take this time as a pause to reevaluate everything and to see the other things in life other than what's kind of fed to us on a daily basis.
So as far as even just like taking the therapist hat off or even keeping it on, what do you think that I have been curious about this, and I don't have kids, I just have a stepson, and I don't see him that often anyway. No, I'm not a good stepmother. That's not what I'm saying. It's just he's like in that phase now, like he's just always playing video games. But what do you think the impact is going to be on kids? Like kids that are used to going to school and socializing and being around other kids, and now they're stuck with their parents or they're feeling isolated. What do you think that impact is going to be like?
Um, I'm really, I mean, basically they're being rewired to kind of live in a new reality. I don't think the thing is that it's not where there's like a snowstorm, the snow melts, even if it takes a week, and then you can go back to what is par for the cost and everything. Now everything's changed. You know, it's like they don't know if they're going to summer camp. They can't. There's no graduation. They don't know how it's going to be around their friends. They don't like. I think that the whole idea of the future has been reshaped.
Yeah.
Learning online. I have people I have, you know, I work with some people who are teachers. It's extremely hard on them because they have anxiety. There's no they said the best part of teaching was being able to interact with the student. I
Mm-hmm.
think the best part of being a therapist for me is interacting with the patients and like or clients and seeing them in person and seeing them smile and like seeing like I'm actually making an impact. It's like we're behind a glass. It's not the same.
That
Feels like we're
human
behind a
connection.
shield. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like as a therapist that this is going to hit? I mean, I know that there's a lot of research anyway about how telehealth is really helpful anyway for OCD. I got phone therapy and it was amazing. But that was back in the day. But do you see this having a negative impact on people's therapeutic experience?
Well, okay, so let's step back. So I was a sufferer
Oh, I didn't know that.
way back, starting at 7 years old. So this is not.
Okay.
So I got my degree. You know, I am a licensed clinical psychologist, but the whole point is that I've never taken. I've stepped into the role of helping people, but I don't. I've always remember where I came from, and I've always used that as to help people. So. You know, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. So
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing is that I think that there's something special to knowing that you're going to a designated place and interacting with people and meeting with them. Not the teletherapy. Maybe it's just because where we come from, that's what we're used to. We're kind of spoiled that we have, you know, that we have here the ability to see people. But there's definitely a magic, a connection that you have because if you think about like the kind of work, like the exposure therapy, the kind of intense amount of trust you have to have in someone,
Mm-hmm.
um, that's where it comes in. Like to look in someone's eyes and to be like, "You're gonna be okay. We're gonna work through this." You know, trust me that the work will pay off and the exposure will pay off, and you know that you don't have to do compulsions. You don't have to be ruled by compulsions, you know, and there's always that it's like kind of convincing someone to believe in you that they'll take that next step to getting better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of really important that there's the
Mm-hmm.
connection with that.
Yeah. You know, interestingly enough, and so when I got therapy, it was with Dr. Phillipson, who's in New York, and it was 1998, and there was no therapist anywhere around me doing exposure therapy in very South Georgia. And he took, you know, he decided to do therapy with me over the phone. But I can see exactly what you're talking about, even though I felt a great connection. And I don't know if you know this, but at our last Game Changers, it was like the first time I ever hung out with
Oh wow.
Phillipson in like 22 years since therapy. Amazing. But even getting to hang out with him and talk to him and yeah, see those like human gestures. Even though I'll forever be grateful for the fact that he gave me therapy and I was able to move through my OCD because of him. Yeah, I can imagine that human connection with the therapist can really probably also help with some of the trauma aspects of living with OCD, just having that support there, having someone there that's saying it's okay. You know, you're not I don't not to be not strength based, but like you're not crazy. Like this is just OCD, and we can do these exposures together. So I could definitely see that.
You know, I specialize in working with adolescents and young adults for reasons because you know I didn't get took 11, 12 years to get diagnosed, so I try to cut it off early as possible to intervene.
Yeah.
But I was on the, you know, when I talk to someone, maybe it might take like 4 or 5 sessions in for a person to open up about like morbid obsessions.
Yeah.
Once I tell them that I have OCD, and that I suffer from it, and I've heard everything under the sun because I've also been running groups since I'm 18. It's like boom, it's like the hammer drops, and they'll after like a half an hour they'll tell me,
Yeah.
and then they'll ask me at the end of the session, we have HIPAA, and they're not going to tell anyone. I'm like, yeah, I got super HIPAA. 'Cause, no, like personally,
Hashtag super.
I understand as a person who is trusting in someone that's the most important thing to me, is holding that trust. But I think that helps is that you know that someone's connected with you. I couldn't imagine like being on the phone and talking about morbid obsession to someone. It would be really. I give you a lot of credit and courage for doing that.
It was terrifying
because it's like look at me, and like you're on the phone with someone, and let's like make people remember there was no. I don't think it was like Judy Jetson talking over the phone. There was no like FaceTime back then.
No,
so it's like a rotary phone. Not. Maybe if you were rich, it was like if you had money, it was one of those big shoe phones. But
it was a phone that the cord could go all the way out to the kitchen.
Yes. So yeah, so like this is like, and so this is back like this. You can't even like hide, and you're talking about this stuff, and it's like, boom. I always like to look at like the positive spin. So maybe because of the situation, you were able to kind of squeeze it out of yourself to do it because you didn't have a choice.
For me, and I'm sure as someone who understands just the whole experience of OCD, it was rock bottom. It was I've got to do something, or I suffer with suicidal thoughts too when I get seriously depressed, and so it was I've got to do this right now. Like
I gotta tell Jules here, this is not a Wu-Tang hat. This is the official Comeback Kid. This is my logo here.
Is this a Wu-Tang?
Yes, and I did not steal it from the Wu-Tang. Original. But yeah, I mean,
no, I was just desperate. It was
bottom is really it's. So I think for people who have a certain type of OCD, the morbid one that are not overt, we have to hit rock bottom.
I know, and I hate that, but it's to me. I do like that you said that, because it had to come to really the willingness to take the risk and live with the uncertainty, because anything before that, I don't know if I would have been able to say, okay, I'll go ahead and expose myself to all this stuff about my sexual orientation, or all this stuff about incest, or all this stuff about scrupulosity, because it was just like, it was too scary. And being at rock bottom was almost like the permission of like, you don't have anywhere else to go. And he was, even though he was just a voice over the phone, that voice over the phone, like after 2 or 3 or 4 weeks and seeing that it could work, it was a saving grace for me. But it was so cool to meet him in person.
Yeah, I mean, he was ahead of his time for doing that, and I give him a lot of credit for that. Because it is, because that was the thing. 88. I think I joined the original foundation in 92. So we were all brainstorming on how to help people. So he was probably really ahead of the curve on that one. Because the conference that I went through, it was almost like it was small, limited, and there was not really. Unfortunately, it came like in clusters from the East Coast, West Coast. It wasn't really the smaller states. So now when I see how much progress has been made, even the fact that we have, these Google, and of course it can be used for bad, for compulsions and rituals, but it also connects people. So it's really important. And that's the thing that you connected me with Sean, which now me and Sean are working on this one collab, and we can't figure out how to put the picture up. So here's this beautiful picture. It was
Sean, like, look at all this technology, but by the way,
Sean's drawing and my little 2 cents of concept were thrown in there. And now
Sean Shinnok. Oh my God, I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. And if he's listening, he's going to be like, Chrissy, how many times do I have to tell you? It's Sean Shinnok. Sean Shinnok. Sean, help. Spell it out for us. Anyway, so
SHINNOCK.
he hates me. Anyway, so with that said, I think this is a good segue, even though I have like 8,000 other things I want to talk about too. But this is a good segue because I want to make sure before we go off on tangents that you get to tell people what it is you're doing. And I think the greatest segue is you were talking about working with kids and teens, adolescents. So tell us, what do you do?
Well, me and you introduced me to Sean. I'm working. I have one book that's on Amazon, but more importantly, I wrote a children's book. Yeah, Sean, there you go.
Like, Christy, how many times?
See, I have an excuse. I only know him as Sean.
Sean S. Sean S.
So the concept is that I came up with a story that actually mirrors my life and my kids' lives. And it's a book about a boy who has a bunch of friends. He goes to a school. He's kind of a clown, a class clown. And then he goes to a new dimension and he faces all these creatures and overcomes his fears. And he realizes he's like the chosen one, the comeback kid. And so I've had the book written and I've been revising it. And I've had some artists, but not until I connected with Sean. He did I did a sketch and gave me the idea of how we're going to actually lay it out. So I've had it for about 5 years, but now I feel like it's going to come to life. We're looking to do a book, a board game, cards, all the way up to, I've already talked about making an app for kids where they can interact and gamify it. But for kids, I think it's really important. I think give a shout out to Sean for Draw a Monster. He's got the Draw a Monster program, which is amazing. He sent me a kit. It's actually beautifully done. It's awesome. The Draw a Monster is great. And we're kind of collaborating on both of those things to kind of make something happen. But his spirit is amazing and his energy is amazing. And I'm so grateful that we connected. And basically, the idea is that we wanted to create something that people can download and color in. And I think that the adults are even more excited than the kids to color it in. So are you do you have that banner to put up or?
Yes, let me put this one up first. Because no one really knows how to pronounce it. Love you, Sean.
Poor Sean.
Okay, so we're looking at if you want to follow what's the progress of this and see the monster.
No, they could actually so those pages they could download a picture.
Yes.
Print it, color it, upload it with a personal message, and we're going to display them all. And there's going to be yes.
Wait, say that again. Start over.
So
tell people what to do. The
Facebook page. You go on the page. There's a link. It took me a few hours to figure it out. But Christy has Instagram on a different line, so we're good. Right, like it's good. At least you don't have perfectionism OCD. Like there's definitely no perfectionism.
Obviously.
So you go to the page. It's Facebook page, Hope Monster COVID. There's a link. You click on the link. You download it, print it, color it in, add your own personal inspirational message, and then you could share it on hashtag Hope Monster COVID on Instagram or upload it and email it to me at drroblancer@gmail.com, and I'll upload it onto Facebook, and we're going to have a beautiful page with everyone's displays.
Okay, there we go. So you will email it here. And is there a timeline for this? Because I definitely want to make sure that we get this on the OCD Gamechangers page and keep promoting it so people know when to do it by.
I want to keep it rolling. I haven't talked to Sean yet, but as time goes on with this, we're going to probably keep it moving, and I'd like to release some of the characters from my book to start getting colored in too. And Sean's been amazing in being able to do such a quick turnaround of the drawing. So I'd like everybody to get up as quick as possible. I think that everyone's out there needs a little inspiration, and people are isolated right now. So, you know, doesn't have to be
It's the
perfect.
perfect thing to do.
Yeah,
right
you can
now.
color outside the line. That's fine.
All right, so here we go. I'm going to keep that up there.
If you don't have crayons and coloring, you could use, lipstick or mascara. It doesn't really matter. Just use whatever you have. If you want to color with a banana, you can color with a banana. It's fine. You could do, finger painting. It's fine.
Just want y'all to know that right before we came on live, it was just like, okay, are we ready to go live? And Rob was like, what's that with the banana?
I've never seen a picture of a banana in someone's home.
Go to my YouTube channels everywhere. So my question for you is this: is the full book that you're doing? I know that we're doing this project now. We want people to get their submissions in, color the monster, send an inspirational quote of hope. I love that. Is the book itself going to be all a coloring book, or is it just mostly about telling the story?
No, it's actually right now it's in script form. It's a whole. So I got 8 and 9 of my clients and some other people. We read it out loud as if it was a play. So it's an interactive book that could be used by parents or therapists to kind of open up and start discussion. But it's going to be a full book. It's going to be like a graphic novel. Basically, it's going to be a graphic novel that's going to be drawn out. And there's a message, and then there's going to be future books basically in other areas. But the whole idea of the book is that you kind of there's 7 characters. So the main character travels and then he goes back. So people can identify with whoever they in the book. I can't give too much away, but he basically travels through and he kind of conquers everything. So it is a very, it kind of, I've tried to encapsulate everything that someone with OCD and anxiety and fear would encounter.
Which, and I didn't know this about you, and I love that I know that now. I mean, what better person to write this book than someone who has been through it?
And a class clown too.
Yeah. No, I can't tell that at all. So I have more of a serious question to ask you. You mentioned earlier about your own journey, and so it took you over 10 years to find help?
Well, I had it at 7 years old, and my grandmother had it, and but we no one really talked about it. So it wasn't until 18 years old that I first got 17 or 18 I got diagnosed, and then I went to my mentor, Dr. Fred Penzel, and from there it was like a slow journey because from 18 to graduation, I kind of was in like fraternity. I played sports. I not in denial. I just didn't. Found other outlets not to have to deal with it.
Oh yeah.
So it wasn't until about 22 that I hit rock bottom and I got help. But I have to give thanks to a lot of the other doctors, Dr. Vincel, Janicki, Mansueto. They were all with open arms when I went into. Actually, when I went to the conferences were they were smaller, but everyone was literally as if it was like one big family. So I got to spend a lot of time with Janicki and with Charlie Mansueto and John Grayson, among others, and Lee Fitzpatrick, just wonderful people. And I think that's an important message for people to know that usually the OCD community, I don't really just make a distinction between a doctor and someone who's suffering because there's no levels or hierarchies. I mean, people who go into this field, it's a very difficult disorder to treat. So they really care and they really want to help. So I'm kind of encouraging anyone out there who's listening, who's on the fence about opening up or talking, go do it because I guarantee you find a real, true, authentic OCD specialist, and it'll be the best thing you did because they're waiting for you, and they've made the conscious choice to go into this profession to help you. They're not there to judge you. They understand and they want to help you. So it's very important that you find a true specialist. You know, you go in there and you have to, like they said, it has to be a true specialist, because there are really scary stories, and my heart drops for people that meet me, that I'm their third doctor, and they're talking about, like, I went to this person and I told them whatever about one of my morbid obsessions, and they said, oh, well, I don't know to call 911 or not. And I'm like, oh, man, if that would have happened to me, I would have been like, oh, I'm not talking again.
Well, and I think you're right. I think that's, and I remember, and I think that's such an important message, because people are so afraid. And, you know, people contact me all the time, and then we meet and they're like, they don't want to tell me, because I try to connect them to people who are specialists, and they don't want to tell me what it is. And I'm like, so is it pedophilia theme? Is it a sexual orientation theme? Is it this? And they're like, oh, wait, what? Like, okay, so if I do fear that I'm going to kill my husband, that doesn't. And I remember that feeling, Rob, when I met with Phillipson, it was like, I had to just be like, I'm worried I'm gay. And I was waiting for him to be like, maybe you are, or what, I don't know, like whatever. And he was just like, okay. So anyway, and he just went on like it was nothing. And I thought, oh my God, this guy he gets it.
I literally have had almost every theme. I'm like, call myself the Yoda. And the only one I didn't have is order, or symmetry and orderliness. But I've had everything from curiosity to my parents. Like when I was little, I had very serious fears of my parents getting killed in a car accident. I'd wake up and sweat. The other thoughts, I mean, literally, so I ran the gamut. But that's why when I tell people, you know, when someone's washing their hands or opening and closing doors, it's not easy. Because when I was like going through therapy, Dr. Pendel always pointed out that everyone wants to swap their OCD with someone else's OCD.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I just wish I had that type, and they don't understand that. No, you don't
like, be careful what you wish for, because they all suck.
So, but I do know that the morbid ones and the mental rituals. That's my subspecialty is the morbid obsession with the mental rituals. Those are like, they run like 24/7, like clockwork in your mind, like you don't even need permission.
Oh,
and
I
then
know.
After a while, the rituals and the intrusive thoughts, they kind of mirror each other, so you don't even know which one's which.
I know. And I think that in honor of that, we're just going to start calling you Dr. Yoda.
Thank you. I'm from the Jersey Shore. I'm not from outer space. Dr. Yoda is in the Jersey Shore. You can find me by the roller coaster.
Jersey Shore Yoda. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah. I feel like Dr. Phil premature.
No, thank you for sharing that. And I think, God, what a great, especially, I love that you really try to catch the kids, adolescents and teens before they get to that space. Dr. Yoda, you and I both have like a very similar story. Like same thing. It ebbed and flowed all through my teenage years. When I went to college, I ran cross country for my college. I was in a I was in a sorority. So it was like, oh, look, I'm all over it. And then when it came back, it hit so hard that and I think that that's what happens for a lot of people. There was actually a big discussion going on a Facebook page the other day about, how OCD can go away or whatever. And it's just, it goes away. And it's like, no, it just ebbs and flows, because to me, it's a chronic illness. It requires that professional help. And I don't know about you, but like it uses time against me. I mean, I'll be, I'm all 42 over here. Am I 42 or 43? I can't remember. Oh, I'm 43 now. I just turned 43. And my OCD will say, well, you've had this obsession since you're 15, so that must mean something. So every time it resurfaces, it always just adds that other element to try to pull you back into the mix. So question that you don't necessarily have to answer. Do you still get the intrusive thoughts?
No.
No. Okay.
Well, I mean, so separate from, I think from the, well, I don't know if they're so like, I call it like getting muted. They're so low level that
Yeah.
kind of like bounce off, but,
It's
the
a
inner
real
critic,
that you don't necessarily stop.
the inner critic created from growing up with the OCD, that's
Hmm.
still there. The inner critic is like a powerful, bombastic thing that
Oh,
people don't talk about. It's
tell me
secondary.
more. Tell me. Can you
So
talk more about it?
the inner critic is for basically the inner critic. Everyone has one growing up from, their childhood. They hear negative things from their parents, and it kind of sits in their mind, or from other kids that get bullied. But getting bullied by OCD is a whole different thing. So you have your parents, bullies, and then you
Oh
have
my
the
God.
OCD.
I
So
love this. I'm writing this down as you talk.
the inner critic from the OCD is basically all that negativity that you hear, that self-doubt. So it builds up and it builds up over the years. So the doubt and the uncertainty translates over to any kind of project you do. It's like never good enough. You always have a doubt and uncertainty. You're always like behind the eight ball. So if you ever process, or you ever think to yourself in an irrational OCD mind, is this going to work? It's going to always come out in a negative form. So it's a self-defeating behavior. It's like, that's why I think that perfectionism, procrastination is so, run so rampant with people with OCD and anxiety, is because it's not that they don't want to do it. Literally, like every project is really above average, and they just stop because they fear that there's something wrong with it, and they get so frustrated they get in that vicious cycle, and they don't know what to do with it, and they just leave it. They'd rather not release it than do it. But there's a great quote to remedy that. It says, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. So anyone out there, yeah. So it's just a lifelong process to try to conquer that inner critic created by anxiety and OCD.
Listen, I can't tell you how much I love this conversation right here, because I am constantly not only in supporting people through peer support, but my own self is just this constant question and search for the why is it that we have such horrible self-esteem issues as OCD. And I remember having like this, I had this metamorphosis one day when a client told me, he was just like, look, because the fact that I cannot, there are questions out there that I have to just resolve that I can't solve, and I have to leave them up to uncertainty. It like that leaves me open for not feeling worthy. And I was just like, oh, like the heavens opened. And I was like, oh my God, I'm one step closer. And this is one of those moments. It's one step closer to really, I feel like, having this well-rounded understanding
I mean, and
of
also another thing
why we feel this way.
uh, is that people with OCD can come off as controlling, and there's a big difference between someone who's like kind of like a narcissist or controlling by nature. People with OCD tend to be very gentle, but it's the anxiety about the uncertainty that we try to control things. So
Yes.
it's not like we want to have it a certain way, and it's our personality type. So OCD is not a character or personality flaw. It's just actually a disorder about doubt and uncertainty. So we try to create that, use that control to try to create that certainty. And for people who could get called controlling, you really have to take a step back and look at it, and be a little more sensitive to understand that the context where it's coming from, the perspective where it's coming from. And yeah, I mean, in general, I think that people with OCD are more sensitive because they have their own judgmental self inside. And as part of the rethinking, we reflect on things that probably aren't so good. So I don't know if it's like an esteem issue, because I've done a lot of work with like rational emotive behavior therapy, where they talk about unconditional self-acceptance. So I don't know if it's an esteem, it's just being used to hearing the negative voice in your head all the time,
Yeah.
that it's like we're fine-tuned, like to hear, like dogs can hear a higher pitch sound. Our minds are more fine-tuned to hear the negative than the positive, even if we get feedback.
Yeah, and that's what I loved is that even just having not the visual of it, but just, if you get bullied day in and day out as a kid into a teenage, and then if you think about it, and I try to tell this to people too, when they don't want to see their experience with OCD as traumatic, even they're suffering obviously from trauma that hasn't been resolved. I'm like, what if you got beat up every day? And they're like, well, that would be different. And I'm like, but your brain, like OCD is beating you up every day. And then they're like, oh. And I had to come to terms with that too. And I think it's part of the grief of working through the grief of what, because what you were saying earlier, the kind of we come off as people that are controlling, in my adult life, looking back in my teenage years when I had no idea I had OCD, I was just surviving it every single day. There are horrible times that I look back and I treated people horrible. I acted in certain ways, but it was never like malicious. It was in my own self-interest because I had to stave off this anxiety that was threatening my life every day. And I think that's so sad and grief-worthy for people.
Yeah, it definitely conditioned. Before we end, I speak with Mike, Dr. Janicki, like a lot, and there's not really one thing that over all these years that he's endorsed as the one specific thing, but adding meaning is one, but even just as important is exercise. So I urge anyone out there right now, especially in the isolation, I saw your beautiful exercise room. You've done a fab job on that one. As a veteran of MMA and boxing, I got to tell you that Everlast bag with the red.
It is amazing.
Really, yes.
It is amazing.
You just need a heavy bag. That's literally all you need. Just punch
I know. I've only been on it now 3 times, and I'm already getting to where the bag doesn't spin all the way around. So
exercise is literally the magic elixir next to therapy and what else, pharmacology. But you have to create some positive momentum. And if all you have to start with is exercise, if you don't have therapists or don't have the psychiatrist or whatever, if you need them, start something positive, and that's really important.
Okay, we're going to get to your last words here in a minute, but I want to remind people. So yes, it is Dr. Yoda, but it's also Dr. Rob Lancer, who's working with Sean Knock, or however, love you, man, who is the creator of Draw Your Monster, and their collaboration is creating this amazing opportunity for you to go to this Facebook page or Instagram, download the photo. Would you want to show the photo real quick?
Yeah. Here we go. Ready?
The old school. Here we go.
I'm uploading it right now.
There's your upload. So get this photo, color it in, give us a message of hope, and send it back to drroblancer@gmail.com.
And I'm inviting and asking as a favor to me that anyone out there who has any questions, please share my email and feel free to email me any questions. And I'm working on setting up some video conferencing just to help people right now because this is a tough time. So email me, contact me, and I'll be more than happy to share whatever I have with you. If you want to put up my site, I have some interesting blogs on there as well.
Okay. You keep talking while I figure this out.
nyocd.com. So you can check it out.
I just figured out this banner thing, which is why I'm
doing really well. I tell you, doing excellent. I think you found a new career.
So Rob, give us some final thoughts, from Rob as a dad, as a therapist, as someone who lives with OCD during this unprecedented time. Tell our community, give us some hope, give us some encouragement.
Well, I think that with everything external happening, that the most important thing is that to keep focused on the fact that the greatest enemy is within, and to kind of keep working on yourself no matter what. Use this time usefully to take a step back and do whatever type of learning you have to do, any type of work you have to do, and use the time to keep learning and applying and keep hoping just know there's people out there. So that was the whole point of this, is to let people know that there's others out there, and you never know ever if you're with someone suffering from OCD anxiety, because we are very good at hiding it. So, you might be standing next to someone, so don't feel alone, because there's always going to be someone out there who has anxiety. And I think I mentioned this to someone, that depression right now is prevalent among the average people. So if you're depressed and if you're anxious, you're kind of par for the course. So cut yourself some slack and realize that you're going to be we're predisposed to anxiety and depression. So you got to cut yourself some slack for being depressed right now, because that's just kind of like par for the course. But things will get better.
Okay. Well, I mean, just like you said, I didn't know that I was virtually sitting next to someone with OCD. So thank you for sharing that. And I really appreciate all that you do and all that you've turned your career in to help our community. And this has been so fun, Rob. You're awesome. And it's been a blast. I can't wait for OCD Gamechangers to support whatever you're putting out there, because I just think with your knowledge and expertise, it's just going to reach tons of people. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, and I appreciate and want to again thank Sean for helping out and making everything move forward.
And thank you all for joining us today. This has been such a fun time talking about some COVID stuff, some OCD stuff, and some great projects that are happening with Dr. Robert Lancer. As you can see, please go to his website, nyocd.com. And also you can reach out to his his email that I posted up earlier, but we'll put it on OCD Gamechangers site. From me to you, thank you for being here. My message to you going into this weekend, because now the weekends are bleeding into all the weeks, is you are not alone, and anything that you're feeling during this time is okay. There is no right way to feel when the entire world is experiencing something new together. So however you are feeling, just know that myself or Rob or all the people in our community are right there with you. We're there to walk alongside you and support you. And yes, we will get through this together as a community as we walk down this path of uncertainty, because that is what we do as people with OCD. We walk together into uncertainty and we still thrive. So we will see you next week. We've got Kim Quinlan coming on Friday, and I also have an interview. I'm not sure if we're doing it in Spanish because I don't speak Spanish, but he does. Alejandro Ibarra is coming on. We're going to talk about how COVID is impacting the Spanish community, and I'm so excited about it. So stay tuned for details about that at OCD Gamechangers on my Facebook page. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, guys.
And we will see you next week.